The door clicked shut behind me, sealing me in a silence so heavy it felt like a blow to the chest. The house should have been filled with the usual sounds of life, children's laughter, the clatter of toys, but instead it stood eerily still. Lena had assured me she'd be home early to tuck the kids into bed, yet there was no trace of her or them. I inhaled deeply, willing myself to stay composed. A faint, unfamiliar sweetness lingered in the air, her perfume, but not the kind she used to wear. Something was undeniably wrong. The living room, which should have been a mess of scattered toys and signs of family life, remained untouched, as if no one had been home at all that evening. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message flashed on the screen. It was from Mrs. Caldwell, our neighbor. "Just wanted to let you know the kids are with me. Lena said you had an emergency at work." An emergency? My stomach twisted. No one had called me in for anything. A sense of unease coiled in my gut as I reread the message. Without hesitation, I headed upstairs, each footstep echoing in the unsettling quiet. I pushed open the bedroom door, and there it was, Lena's dress, discarded carelessly on the floor. The fabric still carried the scent of cigarette smoke and a cologne that wasn't mine. My hands curled into fists as the realization crashed over me. I didn't hesitate. Reaching down, I grabbed the dress and shoved it into the trash. If she thought she could walk back in here like nothing had happened, she was sorely mistaken. The kids were safe elsewhere, and I had no intention of waiting around for her to return as if everything was normal. I strode to the closet, pulled out my overnight bag, and began stuffing her clothes into it. If she had chosen to act like this wasn't her home, then I would make sure she understood it no longer was. Then I heard it, the familiar sound of her car pulling into the driveway. My movements didn't falter. I continued packing, each piece of clothing thrown into the bag fueling the fire inside me. The front door creaked open downstairs, followed by the sharp click of her heels against the hardwood floor. "Babe?" Her voice floated up, light and unaware, as if nothing had changed. I paused mid-motion, the bag half full. This was it, the moment of reckoning. She had no idea what was waiting for her. The bedroom door swung open, and there she stood in the doorway. The smile she had arrived with faltered as her gaze swept over the room, the packed bag, the hollow stillness of the house, the anger carved into my expression. "Where are the kids?" she asked, her voice unsteady. I didn't answer immediately, watching as the reality of the situation started to dawn on her. This night wasn't like the others. This was the night everything unraveled. Her gaze flickered between me and the heap of clothes spilling from the closet. A nervous twitch ran through her fingers as she took a small, hesitant step backward, as if trying to retreat from the confrontation barreling toward her. "Where are the kids, Ethan?" she repeated, the edge of uncertainty creeping into her tone. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. "They're safe, Lena. I made sure of that." I saw the confusion flicker in her eyes, quickly followed by fear. "Good. She should be afraid." Her expression hardened slightly as she tried to regain control of the situation. "Why are you packing my things?" she demanded, her voice carrying an edge now. I met her gaze, unflinching. "I think you already know why." Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out her phone, the one she had conveniently forgotten in her rush to leave earlier. I had seen the messages. The kind that weren't just casual conversations or friendly exchanges. Her face drained of color the moment she saw it. She didn't even try to deny it, which told me everything I needed to know. "Ethan, it's not what you think," she started, but her own voice betrayed her. The words felt weak, empty. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. "Not what I think. Because what I think is that you've been sneaking around behind my back for who knows how long. You thought you were clever, slipping away for fake work meetings, pretending to be out with friends. But you're not as smart as you think, Lena." For a moment, something flashed in her eyes, guilt, regret, maybe even defiance. But still, she tried to salvage the situation. "It was a mistake, okay? Just once." I cut her off, my voice sharp and unyielding. "Once? Don't insult me. I've seen the messages. I know about the nights you came home late, the lies about where you were. How long has this been going on, Lena? How long have you been making a fool out of me?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. Not this time. I had seen the way she looked when she walked in tonight, still caught in the high of whatever she had been doing. That wasn't the face of someone who had made a simple mistake, that was the face of someone who never thought they'd be caught. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. But her words felt weightless, devoid of meaning. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "You didn't want to hurt me? Lena, all you've done is hurt me." She didn't say anything, didn't even try to argue. She knew it was over. "And tonight," I continued, my voice steady and final, "it ends. I want you out of this house. I want you gone before the kids come back in the morning." She stood there, utterly shocked, as if she had never expected me to actually follow through. But she should have known better. I wasn't about to let her tear our lives apart without a fight. My voice was firm, unyielding. You have until sunrise. Gather your things and leave. Stay with him if that's what you want, but don't ever set foot in this house again. Her mouth opened as though she was about to argue, but I wasn't interested in hearing any excuses. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the wreckage of what she had done. This was far from over. Descending the stairs, each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of the truth I had just uncovered was pressing down on me. The fury inside me only grew stronger with every passing second. I had to get out of that house before I did something I would regret. But this wasn't the end of it, not by a long shot. I grabbed my keys from the counter, the sharp clink of metal against marble breaking the tense silence. I was heading for the front door when a desperate voice stopped me in my tracks. Ethan, wait. Please, we need to talk. You don't understand. I turned sharply to see Lena rushing down the stairs, her face streaked with tears, her whole body trembling with desperation. What's left to talk about, Lena? I asked, my voice like ice. You cheated. You lied. And now you're facing the consequences. I don't need to hear anything else. She hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, gripping the banister as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. I made a mistake, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But it's more than just that. We've been drifting apart for months. Ethan, you've been so distant, so caught up in work and the kids. My jaw tightened, my patience snapping. Don't you dare try to blame this on me, I shot back, my words sharp as a blade. You had a choice. You could have come to me, talked to me, and we could have worked through it together. But instead, you ran straight to him. Her eyes darkened with frustration, her sadness giving way to something more resentful. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, she cried. You made me feel invisible in our own home. Like I didn't even exist to you. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay in control. And betraying me was your answer? That was your solution to feeling neglected. A flicker of something guilt maybe crossed her face, but it vanished almost instantly, replaced by a cold, defensive stare. I needed to feel something again. To feel wanted. Alive. She hesitated, her throat tightening before she added, and you stopped caring a long time ago. The words hung between us, heavy and suffocating. As much as I hated to admit it, there was a small sliver of truth in what she said. I had been focused on work, on providing for our family, on keeping things running. But that didn't justify what she had done. You think that excuses it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper but laced with rage. You think that makes it okay? I gave you everything, Lena. Everything. And you threw it away like it meant nothing. She dropped her gaze, unable to meet my eyes. For a moment, I thought she might finally apologize, might take responsibility for what she had done. But instead, she said the one thing that broke the last fragile thread of my restraint. If you had been a better husband, none of this would have happened. My mind went blank. That was it, the final blow. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, everything came crashing down at once. Get out, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Get out of my house before I do something I'll regret. She froze, her face a mixture of shock and fear. But I wasn't playing games anymore. I was done. Ethan, please, get out. I roared, my voice echoing through the house. She stumbled back, her face pale, her breath hitching. A small part of me felt satisfaction in seeing her finally realize the damage she had caused. But mostly, I just wanted her gone. Without another word, she turned and hurried up the stairs, vanishing into the bedroom. A moment later, the sound of the door slamming shut and muffled sobs filled the silence. I stood there, my entire body trembling with fury. My fingers clenched so tightly around the keys that the metal dug into my palm. Her words kept replaying in my mind, poisoning my thoughts. If you had been a better husband. Maybe she was right. Maybe I hadn't been perfect. But I sure as hell didn't deserve this. I needed air. I needed to clear my head, to get away from the suffocating weight of this moment. Without a second thought, I stormed out the door, slamming it behind me. I didn't know where I was going, I just drove. Hours seemed to pass as the city lights blurred around me. But no matter how far I went, the rage inside me refused to fade. Every word she had said, every lie she had told, kept running through my mind like a relentless storm. The image of her standing there, shifting the blame onto me, replayed in my mind like a relentless loop, threatening to drive me to the brink. But as the fury churned inside me, something changed. It hardened, sharpened into something more calculated. I couldn't just let this go. She needed to see the full extent of what she had done, to understand that her deception had consequences. And I knew exactly how to make that happen. I pulled into a deserted parking lot, the glow of the streetlights stretching long, distorted shadows across the pavement. Taking a steadying breath, I forced my thoughts into order. The kids were safe with Mrs. Caldwell, and Lena remained oblivious to what I was about to do. She believed she could continue living this double life, stringing me along, but she was gravely mistaken. Reaching for my phone, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed, Ryan. It had been a while since we last spoke, but I knew he was the kind of person who never truly disappeared from your life. Ryan had connections. He could dig up information most people thought was buried for good. And right now, I needed that kind of skill. The call barely rang twice before he answered. Ethan? Been a long time, man. What's going on? I kept my voice steady, my tone cold. Ryan, I need a favor. A short pause followed. What kind of favor? The kind where I need everything on someone, where she's been, who she's been with, and any secrets she's tried to keep hidden. Ryan didn't ask unnecessary questions. He never had to. Give me the details. Without hesitation, I laid everything out: Lena's workplace, the places she claimed to go, the time frames. I trusted Ryan to handle the rest. In a few days, I would have all the proof I needed. Lena thought she could conceal the truth, but she was about to learn how wrong she was. Consider it done, Ryan said after I finished. I'll get back to you as soon as I have something. I thanked him and ended the call. My heart was still pounding, but the feeling had shifted. This wasn't just anger anymore, it was purpose. The plan was in motion, and I wouldn't stop until every hidden lie was exposed. I remained in the car for a few moments, staring out at the desolate lot. The night air seeped in through the cracked window, cooling my heated thoughts. The rage was still there, but it had been refined, given direction. I wasn't about to let her destroy everything we had built. No, I was taking control of the situation, one way or another. Eventually, I started the car and drove home. The streets were nearly empty, the familiar neighborhood passing by in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark except for the dim glow from the bedroom window. She was awake, no doubt running through her usual manipulations, trying to figure out how to twist the situation to her advantage. But I was done playing by her rules. I was writing my own. Stepping inside, I moved through the house with quiet purpose. The anger that had once threatened to consume me had settled into something colder, something resolute. I climbed the stairs, each step deliberate, until I reached the bedroom door. Without knocking, I pushed it open. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, her face streaked with tears, her eyes swollen and red. When she looked up at me, for a fleeting second, there was a glimmer of hope, a desperate belief that maybe I had calmed down, that maybe I was willing to forgive. But whatever she saw in my expression quickly extinguished that thought. I'm staying in the guest room tonight, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. We'll talk in the morning. Before she could respond, I added, and Lena, if I were you, I wouldn't try to contact him. You've already done enough damage. She remained silent as I turned and walked away, shutting the door behind me. But I could feel her gaze burning into my back, her mind racing, uncertainty tightening around her. She was beginning to understand this wasn't going to end the way she expected. Settling into the unfamiliar bed in the guest room, a strange calm washed over me. This was far from over. But for the first time in a long while, I was the one in control. And by the time everything was said and done, Lena would regret every choice she had made. The following morning, I woke early, my body still coiled with tension from the night before. The guest room was silent, a heavy, unnatural quiet that made my ears ring. Lying there for a moment, I gathered my thoughts, replaying every moment leading up to this. Today, the unraveling would begin, and I was ready for it. From the kitchen, I could hear faint movements, Lena going through the motions, pretending everything was normal. But nothing about this was normal anymore. She was standing on fragile ground, and I could already hear the cracks forming beneath her. I got up, took a quick shower, and dressed without a word. When I finally met my own reflection in the mirror, the man staring back looked unfamiliar. The softness that once existed had been replaced with something else, something cold, something unyielding. This wasn't the moment for doubt or for slipping back into the role of the forgiving husband. That version of me was gone, at least for now. As I stepped into the kitchen, I found Lena standing at the counter, her back to me while she busied herself with breakfast. The rich aroma of coffee filled the air, but it did nothing to ease the heavy tension that clung to the room. She must have sensed my presence because she slowly turned, a strained smile tugging at her lips. "Good morning," she said, her voice unnaturally light, too casual, an obvious attempt to erase the weight of the previous night. "I made coffee. Would you like some?" I didn't acknowledge the question. Instead, I pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down. For a brief moment, I saw her composure falter, the confidence in her expression wavering. But she quickly masked it, placing the coffee pot in front of me as if that simple gesture could smooth over everything. "We need to talk," I said, cutting through the forced small talk. She nodded, biting her lip. "I know. I've been thinking about what you said last night, and I I lifted a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. This isn't about what you think you can say to fix this, Lena. This is about the truth. I'm done with the lies. She stared at me, the color draining from her face. Ethan, don't, I interrupted, my tone firm and unwavering. I don't want excuses. I've already taken steps to uncover everything you've been keeping from me. So before you try to spin another story, understand this is your one and only chance to come clean. No more lies. No more games. Her eyes widened, shock evident on her face. What do you mean? What did you do? I talked to Ryan, I said, watching as the weight of my words hit her like a collapsing wall. She knew exactly what that meant. Ryan wasn't someone you reached out to for minor suspicions, he was the person who could dig deep, revealing things most people thought were buried for good. Panic flickered across her face. Ethan, please, she stammered, her voice trembling. You don't have to do this. I'll tell you everything. Just let me explain. Leaning back in my chair, I crossed my arms over my chest. I'm listening. She inhaled deeply, her hands trembling as she tried to steady herself. It started a few months ago, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was feeling lost. You were always working late, and I felt like I was invisible. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I started talking to someone online. It was never supposed to turn into anything more. I said nothing, waiting for her to continue. It was a familiar pattern, her attempting to cast herself as the victim. But I wasn't falling for it. We met a few times, she went on. At first, it was just for coffee. But then it became more. I'm not proud of it, Ethan. I know I messed up, but I didn't intend for it to go this far. A fresh wave of anger rose within me, but I kept it in check. And stopping never crossed your mind? You didn't think about how this would affect the kids? About what it would do to me? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't let them sway me. I had seen enough of her tears to last a lifetime. I didn't know how to stop, she admitted, her voice cracking. Every time I tried to end it, he pulled me back in. He made me feel alive. I repeated her word, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Alive? That's your justification? You were willing to tear apart everything we built because you wanted to feel alive. She swallowed hard, nodding. I don't expect you to understand. But I swear, I'm telling the truth now. There's nothing more. It's over. I ended it. I studied her, searching for any trace of the woman I had once loved, the woman I had trusted. But all I saw was a stranger, someone who had willingly destroyed our family for her own selfish needs. Good, I finally said, my voice devoid of warmth. Because now it's my turn. You're going to pack your things and leave today. The kids will stay with me and you can explain to them why you won't be around for a while. Her breath hitched. Ethan, no, she gasped, stepping toward me. I stood, raising a hand to stop her. This isn't up for discussion, Lena. You made your choices and now you have to face the consequences. I'll be speaking with my lawyer to sort out the details, but you won't be staying here. I saw the urge to argue flash across her face, but then she must have realized it was pointless. Her shoulders slumped and she gave a slow nod, defeated. I'll pack my things, she whispered before turning away. As she left the kitchen, I was hit by a mixture of emotions, anger, sorrow, and an odd sense of relief. This wasn't the future I had envisioned for us, but it was the reality I had to accept. No matter how much it hurt, I couldn't allow her to stay. Not after everything she had done. The day dragged on, the house falling into a suffocating silence. Upstairs, Lena packed her belongings, following my orders without protest. Meanwhile, I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the television, though I never bothered to turn it on. The emptiness gnawed at me, but I refused to let it consume me. I had to stay focused. Just as I was about to check on the kids at Mrs. Caldwell's house, my phone vibrated. A message from Ryan flashed across the screen. Got something. You're not going to like it. Call me when you're ready. A cold shiver crept down my spine. Ryan wasn't the type to exaggerate, and if he was saying this, then whatever he had uncovered was far worse than I had imagined. Without hesitation, I stepped outside into the backyard, needing the fresh air to steady myself, and dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. His voice was low, grave. Ethan, are you sure you're ready for this? I gripped the phone tighter. I need to know. A heavy sigh came through the line. I could almost hear his reluctance. Then his words hit like a sledgehammer. It's not just one guy, Ethan. I stiffened, my breath catching in my throat. She's been seeing multiple men. I found records, hotel bookings, messages from different numbers. This has been going on for nearly a year. She's met them in various places, using cash, trying to cover her tracks. The world tilted. I reached for the wall to steady myself, my fingers pressing against the cold siding of the house. I had suspected Lena was lying, but this was beyond anything I had prepared myself for. Who are they? My voice was barely audible, yet beneath it, anger simmered, threatening to boil over. A few guys from her job, one from a gym she used to go to, and another I haven't been able to track down yet. She was careful, Ethan, but not careful enough. I've got all the details, the messages, the bookings. Everything you need if you want to take this further. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, my mind struggling to process the weight of what he was saying. Send it to me. My voice was hollow, stripped of emotion. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Are you sure? Ryan hesitated. This isn't something you can unsee. I'm sure. Even though I wasn't. Even though I could feel my heart breaking with every second that passed. Send it. A pause. Then check your email in a few minutes. And Ethan, if you need anything, I'm here. I mumbled my thanks and ended the call, slipping my phone into my pocket with trembling hands. The backyard, once a place of peace and quiet, now felt suffocating. My chest heaved, my vision blurred. I wanted to lash out, to break something, to scream into the night. But all I could do was stand there, paralyzed, my mind drowning in the images of what Ryan had uncovered. I couldn't go inside. Not yet. I needed time to process, to force myself to accept that the woman I had shared my life with had been leading a secret one of her own. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. She had spent an entire year tearing apart our marriage, one secret meeting at a time. Eventually, I forced myself to move, stepping back into the house that suddenly felt colder, emptier. The walls seemed to close in as I walked straight to my laptop, my hands unsteady as I opened my email. Ryan's message was already there, waiting. Attached were multiple files. With a deep breath, I clicked on the first one. Hotel names. Dates. Messages that left no room for doubt. Each line cut deeper. Each photo was another wound. This wasn't just an affair. It was a deliberate, calculated betrayal. Over and over again, she had made the choice to do this. The sadness was still there, but it was no longer the dominant emotion. It was smothered by something sharper, something colder. Anger. She had crossed a line. And now it was my turn to decide what happened next. I closed the laptop, my decision firm. The illusion of our life together had been shattered beyond repair. Now I would shatter hers. I climbed the stairs, my steps slow but purposeful. The bedroom door was open. Lena stood inside, finishing the last of her packing. As I entered, she looked up, her expression a mix of guilt and something else. Fear. She knew. I'm leaving, she said quietly, as if that would somehow undo everything she had done. As if her leaving could erase the damage she had caused. I wasn't going to let her walk away that easily. Sit down. My voice was sharp, devoid of emotion. It wasn't a request. She hesitated, then obeyed, perching on the edge of the bed, watching me carefully. I know everything, Lena. Her face paled. I saw her flinch at the coldness in my tone. Not just about last night. All of them. I know how long this has been going on. I know how you tried to hide it, but you weren't careful enough. A tremor passed through her, her hands gripping the fabric of her jeans. Ethan, please let me explain. I cut her off. There's nothing you can say that I don't already know. The last of my patience was gone. You didn't just cheat. You destroyed everything we had, over and over again, with every man you brought into your life. You never once thought about me, or the kids. You never thought about anyone but yourself. Tears streaked down her cheeks, but they no longer had any effect on me. Not anymore. You're leaving this house today, and you won't be coming back. I've already consulted my lawyer, you'll be hearing from him soon. And as for the kids, I'll make sure they know the truth. Every single detail. Ethan, no! She cried, reaching out as if to grasp my hand. But I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Please don't do this. I know I made mistakes, but we can work through them. We can. There is no we anymore. I interrupted sharply. You destroyed that with every lie, every betrayal. You made your choices, Lena, and now you have to live with them. Get out. Now. Her face fell, the weight of finality sinking in. There were no more excuses, no more ways to twist the truth. She had lost, and she knew it. Slowly, she rose to her feet, hands trembling as she reached for her suitcase. At the door, she hesitated, looking back at me, searching for some trace of forgiveness, some small sign that there was still a chance to fix what she had broken. But I gave her nothing, just a cold, unwavering stare that told her all she needed to know. She turned and walked out. The sound of her suitcase wheels rolling down the hallway echoed through the house as she left. My home. Forever. And as the door closed behind her, I finally exhaled the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It wasn't over. Not yet. But this was the first step toward reclaiming my life from the wreckage she had left behind. There was no turning back now, only forward. The silence after Lena's departure was overwhelming. The house, once feeling too small, now seemed vast and empty, stripped of everything she had taken with her. Her presence, her lies, her deceit. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the door she had walked out of, a mix of relief and devastation washing over me. She was gone, truly gone. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had loved, was no longer a part of that life. And it was all because of her own choices. But instead of the crushing grief I had anticipated, there was only an eerie numbness, a cold void where my heart had once been. I moved back into the living room, every step weighed down by the reality of what had just unfolded. Her untouched cup of coffee still sat on the counter, growing cold. Without hesitation, I dumped it down the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl away, just like our marriage had. A buzz from my phone shattered the stillness. Mrs. Caldwell. She was checking in about the kids. I hesitated before picking up, trying to shake off the morning's events. "Hey, Mrs. Caldwell," I answered, my voice rough from the strain of everything. "How are they?" "They're fine, Ethan," she reassured me warmly. "They've been playing all morning. They don't know anything is wrong. Don't worry. But, how are you?" I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply before replying. "I'm fine. Just handling things." "You don't have to go through this alone, you know," she said gently. "If you need anything at all, just let me know." Her kindness touched me more than I expected. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "I'll come pick them up soon." "Take your time," she insisted. "They're happy here, and you should take a moment for yourself." After hanging up, I sank onto the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. My thoughts swirled chaotically, none of them settling long enough for me to make sense of them. The house, usually filled with the kids' laughter, now felt like a tomb, haunted by echoes of what used to be. It was too much. I needed to get out. Grabbing my jacket and keys, I stepped outside, locking the door behind me. I didn't have a destination in mind, just an overwhelming need to put some distance between myself and the wreckage of my life. The streets were bustling with weekend activity. Families enjoying their day, couples walking hand in hand, life moving forward as if nothing had changed. It all felt so normal, so routine, yet I felt completely detached from it, like an outsider looking in on a world that no longer felt like mine. Without consciously deciding, I found myself heading toward the park. It had been months since I last visited, back when Lena and I would take the kids there, back when things still felt right. Parking the car, I stepped out and wandered along the familiar paths. The park was alive. Children playing, dogs running, laughter carrying on the breeze. But I felt like a ghost among them, moving through someone else's memories. Eventually, I found an empty bench by the lake and sat down, staring at the rippling water, watching the sunlight dance across its surface. What now? That question echoed in my mind, relentless and unanswerable. What was I supposed to do now that everything I had believed in was gone? The anger and determination I had felt earlier were beginning to slip away, leaving behind a hollow sadness that refused to fade. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, yet the road ahead remained uncertain, shrouded in doubt. As I sat by the lake, watching the ducks glide effortlessly across the water, a painful truth settled within me. I was truly alone. For the first time in years, there was no one to confide in, no one to turn to when the weight of the world felt unbearable. Lena was gone. The life we had painstakingly built together had crumbled into nothing but distant memories and broken trust. I had friends, of course, but this loneliness was different. It wasn't just solitude. It was the deep, aching void that came from realizing the one person who was supposed to stand by my side had instead inflicted the deepest betrayal. Yet, alongside that realization came something unexpected: freedom. It wasn't a warm, comforting kind of freedom, but a stark, cold one. Still, it was freedom nonetheless. I was no longer entangled in the web of lies, no longer trapped in a relationship that had been deteriorating long before I had seen the signs. I had the chance to rebuild, to start fresh. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but it was possible. With a deep breath, I stood, taking one last glance at the rippling water before turning toward the parking lot. The journey ahead would be grueling, and I knew there would be days when the burden of it all would feel unbearable. But I refused to let her win. Lena had already taken enough. My trust, my love, my peace of mind. I wouldn't let her take my future as well. As I drove toward Mrs. Caldwell's house to pick up the kids, a new sense of purpose took root within me. My focus would be on them, on being the father they deserved. None of this was their fault, and I wouldn't allow my pain to cast a shadow over their lives. I would rebuild not just for myself but for them. And maybe, just maybe, healing would follow. The drive back felt longer than usual, each mile bringing me closer to a conversation I wasn't ready to have. The kids were still too young to fully grasp what had happened, but they deserved some kind of explanation. My thoughts raced as I tried to form the right words. How to tell them their mother wouldn't be coming home tonight, or maybe ever again. Pulling into Mrs. Caldwell's driveway, I took a moment to steady myself before stepping out of the car. The warm sound of laughter floated through the open windows, a sharp contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. Taking a deep breath, I forced a smile and knocked on the door. Mrs. Caldwell answered almost immediately, her kind, motherly presence offering a small measure of comfort in the chaos. "Come in, Ethan," she said softly, stepping aside to let me enter. I nodded, my forced smile wavering as I stepped inside. In the living room, the kids were sprawled across the floor, engrossed in an elaborate fort made of pillows and blankets. Mrs. Caldwell's aging golden retriever watched them lazily, barely lifting its head. Seeing them like this, so carefree, so untouched by the storm raging outside their world, tightened the knot in my stomach. "Hey, kiddos," I greeted, doing my best to keep my tone light. Both children looked up, their faces lighting up at the sight of me. "Dad!" Noah, my eldest, bolted upright and ran to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Can we stay for dinner? Mrs. Caldwell said we could have pizza." I ruffled his hair, forcing a chuckle. "We'll see, buddy. But first we need to head home. We can talk about dinner on the way. Okay?" Sophie, my youngest, glanced up from her fort, her wide eyes filled with innocent curiosity. "Where's Mommy?" she asked, her voice soft and trusting, as if she were simply asking the time. I hesitated, my heart twisting. "She's not coming home right now," I said gently, crouching down to meet their eyes. "She had to go away for a little while." Both of them frowned, their young minds trying to make sense of my words. "Where did she go?" Noah asked, his small hand tightening around mine. I drew in a deep breath, searching for the right response. "Mommy needed some time to herself," I explained carefully, my voice steady but heavy with unspoken truths. "She's staying somewhere else for a while, but you two will be with me, okay? We're going to be okay. We'll get through this together." Sophie's eyes shimmered with tears as she crawled out from beneath her fort and wrapped her little arms around my neck. "I don't want Mommy to go away," she whispered, her voice trembling. Holding her close, I murmured, "I know, sweetheart. I know this is hard, but I promise we'll be okay." Noah's frown deepened as he processed my words. "Is it because you and Mommy had a fight?" he asked hesitantly, a hint of fear in his voice. I swallowed hard, pushing down the emotions rising in my chest. "Yeah, Noah, we had a fight," I admitted, choosing my words carefully. "But that doesn't change how much we both love you. Your mom and I are just trying to figure some things out right now." Mrs. Caldwell stood in the doorway, sympathy evident in her kind eyes. "You're welcome to stay for a bit if you need more time, Ethan," she offered gently. I shook my head gently, declining the offer. "Thanks, but I think we should head home. I need to talk to them a bit more." She gave a small nod, her expression filled with understanding. "You know where to find me if you need anything." Offering a faint but grateful smile, I carefully pulled away from Sophie's comforting embrace and turned my attention to gathering the kids and their things. The drive back was eerily silent, the weight of our earlier conversation pressing down on all of us like an approaching storm. No one asked any more questions, and for that I was quietly relieved. I didn't think I had any more answers to give. When we stepped inside, the house felt different, colder, emptier. The absence of Lena was no longer something I could push to the back of my mind. It was an undeniable void, swallowing up the warmth that had once filled our home. I did my best to maintain a sense of normalcy as I ushered the kids inside, though I could feel it slipping through my fingers. "Why don't you two go play in your rooms for a little while?" I suggested, keeping my tone as steady as possible. "I'll start dinner soon." They hesitated for a moment, their faces still etched with uncertainty and concern, but neither of them protested. With small nods, they disappeared down the hall, leaving me standing alone in the quiet. As they vanished from sight, the weight of everything hit me all over again. How do you explain to a child that their mother won't be coming back? How do you help them understand something you barely understand yourself? I leaned against the kitchen counter, closing my eyes as I pressed my fingertips to my temples. The numbness that had carried me through the past few hours was starting to fade, leaving only a deep, aching sense of loss. This wasn't how our lives were supposed to unfold. We were supposed to be together, a family. We were supposed to be happy. But now it was just me and the kids, left to pick up the broken pieces and somehow move forward. Needing anything to occupy my mind, I pulled open the refrigerator and started taking out ingredients. My hands moved automatically, preparing dinner without much conscious thought. The simple routine of cooking gave me a lifeline, something tangible to hold onto as I struggled to keep myself from sinking under the weight of it all. As I stirred the pot on the stove, I could hear the kids talking softly in their rooms, their voices filled with uncertainty. I knew they were scared, confused, maybe even angry. And I knew that it fell on me to be their anchor, to steady them in the middle of the storm. But no matter how much I tried to hold everything together, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were slipping beyond my control. No matter what I did, I couldn't undo what had already happened. I couldn't take away Lena's betrayal, couldn't erase the damage it had left behind. All I could do now was keep moving forward, step by step, and hope that somehow we would find a way through. The sound of quiet footsteps behind me pulled me out of my thoughts. Turning around, I saw Noah standing in the doorway, his face serious. "Dad," he said softly, his voice almost hesitant. "Is Mommy ever coming back?" His words sent a sharp ache through my chest. I met his gaze, seeing the hope and uncertainty in his eyes, and felt the weight of the moment press down on me. "I don't know, Noah," I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "But no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. I promise." He studied me for a long moment before giving a slow nod. He was searching for reassurance, and I tried my best to give it to him. I even managed a small, fragile smile, trying to be the strong father he needed. But deep down, the truth remained, I was just as lost as he was.